It's bourbonblog.com. I'm Tom Fischer here with my good friend for many years, Dave Schmier, founder of Proof and Wood Ventures. What's happening, Dave?
Just hanging out here, having a couple of drinks with a friend.
That's right. We're doing it. We're drinking with all of you watching, and it's great to be sipping there with you, Dave. And we're going to try some great stuff. Everything from Deadwood to the Tumbling Dice, even the Senator, which it's we're all part of the cocktail party, right? It brings everybody together around whiskey, doesn't it? So that's what we're doing. So Dave, tell us, for those that don't know, tell us what is Proof and Wood Ventures?
Proof and Wood is a little small company. I started 5 years ago. And the idea is I don't distill, as you may or may not know, but I do source mainly whiskey and other spirits from great distillers. And what I have control of is age and what proof, or as my European friends say, ABV, we bottle it at. And that does, change the flavor,
right,
somewhat. So right. Proof and Wood kind of is a nod to that.
Yes, and you've done a great job. Or do we want to start with the Deadwood bourbon or the rye first? Where do you want to go first?
Always good to start with the bourbon first.
Let's start with the Deadwood bourbon. I see some playing cards. You're going to get lucky in some fashion. Maybe rolling the dice. The rolling dice is coming later, but there's a whole kind of casino theme around these to a degree, right?
I think I'm bottling whiskey than I am gambling. So.
That can definitely happen. Well, and you've taken some great gambles along the years and given us some great whiskey, given the whiskey world some amazing gambles that have been very tasty. So what is this Deadwood bourbon? I'll taste it along with you here.
So the Deadwood bourbon and the Deadwood rye, both of the Deadwood whiskeys, I like to call American table whiskey. You can drink them all day, every day. The 750 retails for about $20 to $25, and we do liters for on-premise business. The Deadwood bourbon is all Indiana bourbon from our favorite distillery there in Indiana. It's the mash bill with 75% corn, 21% rye. So it's got more of a classic corn-forward, sweeter bourbon. We bottle it, very approachable, 81 proof. So it's good for just sipping on or mixing into a cocktail. Good enough to drink, but not so dear in price that you don't want to drink it every day.
It is very nice. Some nice grain notes, some really nice corn comes forward. Just a little between 2 and 3 years old, kind of varies.
This batch is between 2 and 4.
2 and 4, very nice. Some nice creaminess. The name Deadwood, where did the name come from for Deadwood?
Well, I started with the hand of cards on the front of the bottle. Aces over eights, the dead man's hand. Cool imagery. And then you do a little reading, and the significance of the dead man's hand is that's a hand that Wild Bill Hickok was showing when he was shot dead in a bar while playing poker. No one really knows what the fifth card is, in case you're wondering. There's a lot of different theories there, but that bar happened to be in Deadwood, South Dakota.
Wow! And
Deadwood's great for whiskey. So there you have it. A guy from New York living in Connecticut is buying whiskey in Indiana, bottling it in Kentucky, and he stole the name of a South Dakota town.
Right. I think I may have actually been to this bar. That bar still around, or is it remains or a museum or something? I feel like I've heard.
I'm pretty sure it's still there in some form, or at least the facade.
Nice. And so I don't know what that last card is. Deadwood bourbon, straight bourbon. And as we're talking about these, where can folks find these? Where's the best place for them to find a lot of your products?
We're in about 15 states, New York, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Washington, D.C., Delaware, Maryland, Illinois, Kentucky, California, Louisiana, Colorado, Arizona, Washington State, Oregon. So, ask around, send us an email. We're not everywhere, but we don't need to be yet.
You're in a lot of great places. All right, so let's move on to the Deadwood American Rye Whiskey. Same hand of card, right? Cards.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. So there it is. We're gonna hopefully get lucky once again. I'm sure we will. So you've been in this business. I think someone was asking down below. You've been in this business for how long? You've been in the whiskey business for quite a while, haven't you?
Been in the spirits business since the early 90s.
Yeah.
And Mike and I started Redemption 10 years ago.
Right.
Which is our official entry into the whiskey business.
Yeah. I remember meeting you 10 years ago, trying Redemption. I think I was one of the first to review it about 10 years ago. And there was this great story. I don't know. Should we tell them now or should we make them wait, Dave? What do you think?
We should move on a little bit.
We'll move on. We're going to tell you a good story about a little prank Dave played on me years ago.
There was no prank, Tom.
What are we tasting here?
So the Deadwood Rye, again, very similar. All day, every day, American table whiskey. It's actually a blend of two rye whiskeys. So we get the famous 95% rye from our favorite distillery in Indiana.
Right.
And we also put in about 20% of some rye whiskey that I sourced from a distillery in Tennessee.
Wow. Okay.
So the Indiana rye is going to give you the sweeter floral notes, and the Tennessee rye gives it a little bit of an edge, not too much, but just to let you know it's there.
I like those floral. I think that the floral notes really speak nicely. It's not something you get in every rye, those floral against the barrel. So we have both Tennessee and Indiana rye around the same age. Both of them are.
And so this bottling is also 2 to 4 years old. And it doesn't say straight because the whiskeys are from different states and not
2 to 4. This is really nice. I do like, as you mentioned, the floral element. Very light, easy, approachable. But again, I could see how it could really make a phenomenal cocktail. Any favorite cocktail you have to make with either the Deadwood bourbon or the rye?
The bourbon I'll generally drink neat with a lot of tall glass of ginger beer and maybe a little bitters in there. The rye, this one I'll make a Manhattan, but I won't use very much vermouth at all because it doesn't need all that much to bring the proof down at all. Just try and balance it and keep the flavor of the whiskey predominant. Some people like their Manhattans to taste more like vermouth, but not me.
I'll tell you one of the things, and that sounds really good. One of the things I can remember that you have done historically that I never saw anybody else do in previous years, and maybe you still do it, were these whiskey tiki parties. Before you brought these parties, and I think it was a great thing for the industry. Before you started hosting these, I didn't see anybody doing whiskey tiki parties.
We were early on that trend. There were a couple, and we were just having fun. But the really cool thing, and the first big one we did, was at Tales of the Cocktail. And what was really a lot of fun about that is, our job was to put good whiskey in a bottle.
Yes.
And we were so fortunate that a lot of people in the bartending community really responded to what we were doing. And the drinks we were serving were drinks that were being sold out in the marketplace. We did a rye tie that we had adapted from a bar in Atlanta. We did a frozen Sazerac, which was called the Spazrac.
That's right. Yeah.
And they hadn't met me when they named it. And yeah, that was a frozen Sazerac at the Tippler in New York, which was great. There was another one from DC, and we just brought drinks that we found happening out in the wild. So yeah, that was a fun event, until the guy from Bacardi bashed it at some seminar the next day, but we won't talk about that.
Well, I still think it's a great idea, and it really shows just how versatile whiskey is. From Tales the Cocktail, I know I went to one with you that you hosted at Bourbon Festival many years ago, but I think it really does show whiskey, whether it's rye, bourbon, whatever it might be, that these are things that can really speak in tiki drinks. And of course, tiki drinks continue to get more popular. And again, for those of you just joining us, Dave Schmier, the founder of Proof and Wood Ventures. If you have any questions for Dave, ask them down below. Thanks to all who are watching on bourbonblog.com live. And like this video, share it. We want to make sure everybody feels like they're hopefully you're drinking something tonight as you're watching. Tell us down below what you're drinking. But if you're not, let's feel like it's a party and share it with your friends. And we're going to keep on tasting some amazing stuff. So we started with the Deadwood Bourbon, the Deadwood Rye. Okay, so I gotta say, I like how this theme of luck continues. Tumbling Dice. Tell us about the name and the bourbon itself.
Well, the bourbon itself is one of my favorite mash bills from what is now known as the MGP distillery.
Yes.
And my bottle's got a lot of wax on it, so you might want to give me a second.
Take your time. It's very nice stuff.
And it's 36% rye, 60% corn, a little bit of malted barley.
That recipe back there, I like it. Yes. So this is one of your very favorite mash bills that they've been doing, or they've done, I guess, for many years there at MGP, right?
Yeah, they've a long time.
Yeah. Very tasty. I like this.
So the name Tumbling Dice, actually the first version of Tumbling Dice that I bottled was 11-year-old. And it's been pretty difficult in the last however many years to source old whiskey. In some cases it was difficult to source young whiskey, but that's changed. And when you're buying, especially as a small producer, when you're buying older barrels, you sometimes maybe get to taste them, sometimes don't. And then when you let them age as well, you never really know what they're going to taste like till you pop the bung and take a sample. So
right.
There was a little bit of rolling the dice when you're buying barrels a little bit. And that was kind of what the nod was there.
I like it.
So
and there's a Rolling Stones song called Tumbling Dice too, isn't there?
I think so. I'm not sure.
We got to make sure Mick Jagger. I mean, maybe Mick probably was like, I got to get a bottle of this. I'm sure he was. If not, he needs to reach out and get one. If you're listening, Mick.
If Mick is listening, we will send him a barrel.
All right, this could happen. Now I actually came close. He was in Memphis a couple years ago, a few blocks away, at what is it called, Sun Pop Studios, when I was hosting a tasting in Memphis. And I tweeted to him and said, if you're close by, come by my tasting. He didn't come, but this could happen. You never know.
He was drinking with Bob Dylan. Basically.
I think he might have been. It's very possible. This is very nice. This is very deep. It's a minimum of 4. This tastes like a lot older though. This is really good.
Just that rye really gives it body, gives it flavor, and again, bottling it at 100 proof really highlights the whiskey a lot. You get that. You get all those flavors. You get all the standard whiskey notes that you're getting from the barrel, the vanillas, the caramels, tobacco notes, a little chocolate. It's all in there, but the proof really emphasizes, I think, the rye and also the sweetness of the corn. Sometimes when it hits your tongue, you get that interaction between the sweet and spicy, and it's just really cool to taste.
What do you like about the? And I know this is the heavy rye mash, but what do you like most about the heavy rye mash? But what really speaks to you as far as it being one of the best that you can select?
Just the bold flavors, and just the way it stands up on its own, and just really, really strong in a cocktail.
Now you were saying, I agree. This is just the flavors come across so beautifully. You were saying sometimes when you are selecting the barrels, whether it's from MGP or wherever you might be, as you're trying to decide what am I mixing together, sometimes you get a chance to try these. Sometimes do you sometimes get a barrel without ever trying? I mean, how does that process look like for you? Because I don't think a lot of people walk us through that.
Ideally, you taste them all, especially older ones that you're paying a lot for.
Right.
The great thing about using whiskey from MGP, formerly known as LDI, formerly as the Seagram's Distillery, and so on, is that after 150 or so years, they kind of know what they're doing.
Right.
And you get a really solid level of consistency. So with that consistency, for younger whiskey, I'm more comfortable buying it without necessarily tasting every barrel. Even with that consistency, however, when you get into barrels older than 5 or 6 years old, in general, you really want to taste them because they could be so different depending on the wood, where they were sitting, and all the mystery that surrounds aging. Sometimes you don't have that luxury, and it's a balance of scarcity, cost, and what you're comfortable doing. Fortunately, I've when it comes to older stuff, I do get to taste a lot of it, because you really don't want to spend thousands of dollars on a barrel that you don't know what's going on in there. And being a smaller company, I don't have a lot of stuff to blend it into.
Right.
It's tough to decide, and I've done it, to put a older, much more valuable barrel of whiskey into something like Deadwood, because it'll blend well, so you don't find it to work on its own.
Makes sense, and that's great. And you've known their whiskey for so many years. You have an idea of what to expect. But as it gets older, there are a lot of nice variations, and I'm sure that's one of the things you love about doing these single barrels is the variations there are, how those are showcased, right?
Yeah, it's always a surprise what you get in there.
Right, and so we do have a Tumbling Dice single barrel. Again, this is the maroon label, but this is 117 proof. Little bit, quite a bit higher actually on this bottle. What do these single barrels range in as far as proof goes?
So they have been ranging between 108 and about 118.
Wow. So this is really on the upper end. So this is very exciting.
Yeah.
These single barrels, is this kind of a newer part of Tumbling Dice, just releasing a few of these, or what's this like?
It's kind of a new addition. We did the first batch of them last year. I think I did about 30 barrels, and we just kind of did 40 in the middle of COVID, which was a little tricky. But
right.
What we do a little bit differently is I'll pick the barrels, and then we'll bottle them, and then we'll offer samples to our retailers.
Amazing. So these are some that you will see at just select retailers, or also just on other shelves as far as single barrel programs go?
So I've got some great distributors, and what we do is some of the distributors will select their own barrels. So BC Merchants in Chicago, LeDroit in DC, Maryland, Delaware, PM Spirits in New York, they'll select a barrel. So if a bar or a retailer wants to just buy a case or a couple of bottles, they've got a great selection to choose from. Also Pacific Edge out in California. And then we have probably total about 25, 30 so far, individual retailers that have picked barrels.
Really nice. Well, I'm very, very pleased with what I'm tasting here. This is that same recipe, but again, higher proof, some variation, obviously, or quite a bit of variation from bottle to bottle because it is a single barrel. But that rye, again, on this, just coming through beautifully. That proof. This is really beautiful stuff. This is really a nice single barrel. I like this.
So if I had been on my game and not living through a giant storm here with no power, I would have had the same bottle that you do. So I have a slightly different. I've got one. Mine is 111.4 proof.
Okay, so it's close. I mean, it's a little bit still higher.
What kind of flavors are you getting out of that one?
I'm getting some incredible, well, the spice against the chars coming through very nicely. Definitely some kind of some spicy cocoa. This is really good. This is a very nice single barrel. What are you getting on yours?
Some of the same. This one's got a little bit of dried cherry in it.
Very nice. Single barrels can be so much fun, and so I bet this is especially with smaller production, really fun for you to find these single barrels and say, yes, we're going to do this as a single barrel. As far as availability, these are the same states I would imagine as Deadwood.
Yeah, and you'll find them all over Kentucky, which has been really cool, and New York and Massachusetts, DC, California, Vegas, Chicago.
Very nice. Price point on what we've tried so far. We think we talked about Deadwood. Tumbling Dice, where's the price point on these?
The 100 proof Tumbling Dice, depending on what market and how much tax your state takes, they'll generally between 43 and 49. The Tumbling Dice single barrel generally around 60 to 65.
Incredible. Very nice. Very tasty stuff. Really amazing whiskeys. Tumbling Dice, Deadwood. Are we going towards the Senator or Justice? Where do you want to go towards next?
Why don't we do Justice next?
All right. Why don't we do Justice? And this again is some of the themes you have done the last several years have been celebrating freedom, celebrating I guess different areas of government. What inspired that?
Well, so again, this business has always been a lot of fun. On some days, I get to meet people like you and have a drink and really talk about the whiskey. Obviously, all the bartenders and retailers who supported the whiskey that I've put out in the past have been great. And my distributors, I tend to use small, passionate, knowledgeable distributors who really love what they do and do a great job of getting smaller quality brands out into the marketplace. My distributor in DC, Mike, grew up in the DC area. And for him, the presidential inauguration has always been a great big party. Wasn't about who won and who lost. It was about we're celebrating our tradition and democracy,
right?
And how do you best celebrate with a lot of parties? And there's one thing they know about in DC very well is how to throw a good party,
right,
and how to drink a lot of whiskey, which is what we love about them. So he came to me, I don't know, probably around 2014, and said, "Hey, could we do a 8-year-old whiskey and call it 2-term, and a 4-year and call it 1-term for the presidential?" So I went out, and really one of the first projects with Proof and Wood was to find suitable 4-year-old and 8-year-old whiskey.
Right.
And I was able to source a bunch of 8-year-old bourbon and 4-year-old rye. And we bottled that as a presidential dram, 4-year, 8-year, and sold it only in DC. And, we did it very tongue in cheek. We didn't see probably the most divided election we've ever seen and you saw this even before the results were in. So we really just talked about it as being good whiskey rather than giving a preference for it.
Sure.
And that series has continued. The next one we did was the Ambassador, which is a 12-year-old bourbon, and then the Justice, which is a 14-year-old Tennessee bourbon. And if you can see, working the camera here, so people always think we're taking sides in some way that they find in their heads, but the label has red lettering on it and blue wax.
Right.
Some of them have red wax and blue lettering. They're all red, white, and blue.
Right.
So we can all celebrate in peace.
I like it. It's especially around whiskey. Hopefully will keep us all at peace. If we could just, that's the thing. I think if we could just have a few more cocktail parties and some whiskey, we all would have some more peace. I like that. So again, this is a 14-year-old Tennessee bourbon. And usually we don't drink Tennessee, well, really any bourbon, but Tennessee bourbon at this quite high of an age. This is really amazing.
Yeah, there were quite a few barrels. I found the barrels that had a lower proof to them to be much more balanced. One of the challenges you have with older American whiskey, bourbon and rye, is that with that heavy char, the older whiskeys start to taste a little too earthy.
Right. And the Tennessee whiskey at older ages, I think, does. I mean, I know what older bourbon from Kentucky tastes like. This Tennessee bourbons at those older ages, I mean, there's really some notes in there that you don't get on just Kentucky bourbons, aren't there?
I think so. Again, you get some of those really earthy notes that if they push too far, could honestly taste like dirt.
Right. I agree. Kind of some nice, almost toffee or very caramel like fudge to it, but against a really good barrel. This is really a beautiful, candied yet really elegant barrel note. This is very, very nice. Again, it's at 94.2 proof, 14-year-old. The Justice is this one that's a little tougher to find, I would imagine.
I've got none left, but the good news is in the fall we'll be bottling 15 barrels of 16-year-old Tennessee bourbon and bottling it as a Justice.
So this is going to be a new batch of the Justice at 16 years old.
That is correct.
Excellent. What does the Justice go for approximately then?
Around 100.
Very nice. This is beautiful. This is such a great expression. I love the American theme that's there that unites us all. That you've been able to do on some of the theme of the presidential dram, the Justice. We'll try the Senator in a moment, but this really is this is very nice. Again, things to look forward to then would be the fall around September, October. You'll have this one out.
As they say in Kentucky, it gets done when it gets done.
It gets done. That's true. It can happen. So around the fall.
Around the fall.
Yeah.
This fall, we hope.
Yeah, maybe in time. Maybe in time to drink either before or after the election. We'll see what it's done. But look forward to that. And then any others along the series with the All-American series?
Well, on that note, and I don't know if you've caught the news, but there's another presidential election this year.
Yes.
So we're
I heard one or two things about it.
So we're revisiting the presidential dram.
Very nice.
And this version will be an 8-year-old rye and a 4-year-old bourbon.
8-year-old rye, 4-year-old bourbon. Whereas the last time you did it, it was a little younger then. It
was 4-year-old rye, 8-year-old bourbon.
Wow. Very nice. I think I remember you telling me that. Actually, I think I can remember the last time you did it. You were like, it's going to change. So that'll be fun. And again, that will be released around the same time.
That is the plan.
That is the plan. So we'll have something to look. In addition to the election, we'll have some new whiskey releases to look forward to. Speaking of which, the last 4.5, 5 months for you for Proof and Wood. I mean, obviously everyone is really enjoying whiskeys, hopefully, more and more as bars are opening back up, but people have been enjoying them at home too. What's it been like for you as far as for Proof and Wood the last 4.5 months or so?
So I consider myself very fortunate where I sit in general. I've got a lot of flexibility to deal with the current situation, and I don't take that lightly. As far as the business goes, business has been pretty solid. We're probably, before COVID, we were probably about 70% off premise and 30% on. We pretty much lost, all of our on-premise business.
Right.
The off-premise business has more than made up for it. The Deadwood brand has done really well. People looking for value off-premise, and honestly, the rarer whiskeys, people can't seem to get enough of them, which is great. But the one thing that, as much as that's good for me, looking at the environment outside and the people that, again, have supported my whiskeys over the years, just really great people, passionate people, are really hurting, and really need to, I don't need to remind your audience, I'm sure, to, go out and spend money when your favorite places open up. But I think more than that, talking about celebrating our government, we really need to all speak out and ask for as much help as possible for the hospitality community.
Yes.
Most of these people, again, they run on passion and they run on hospitality, and they don't make a lot of money. Even the places that look successful, with very few exceptions, the people who run them and own them are not making too much money that they were able to, to weather these 5 months so far and the uncertainty of the future. So they really need our help, but they really need government help, and we should really look at that, because having your venue only be doing 25% by law of the business it could do, just not going to work long term. Not going to work short term either.
Yeah. I'm glad you shared that, Dave, my friend. Thank you for sharing that, because that's the sentiment we've been getting, and I think it's so important to remind people just how important it is to speak up for those that need it the most, those in office in hospitality, and really make your voices heard. And of course, we appreciate the ability to have great people like Dave on to help support the spirits industry. Also, the smaller brands. We're really enjoying featuring smaller brands through our nightly live show on Bourbon Blog Live. So make sure you bookmark bourbonblog.com live and keep supporting great brands like Dave's as well. Try new things out. I mean, that's part of the reason why we're doing this, is to make sure that people try new things. And as our friend Donald Snyder, who's commenting on Facebook, just said, hello from Florida. Dave makes some of the best bourbons and whiskeys. Donald's been a faithful watcher, so we appreciate that, Donald. And
thank you, Donald.
Yeah, we enjoy Donald's programs a lot too. So we're glad to be sipping with Donald and everybody. And then Dan from Indiana on Twitter. Yes, your whiskeys are available in Indiana, aren't they?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay, so tell us again where we find them.
You could drive down to Kentucky.
If you're not far from Kentucky like me, you can get them. Whereabouts around? How many states are you in? You're in quite a few states.
About 15.
15, right on. So drive down to Kentucky. That would be the closest place. Appreciate everyone who's watching. And Dave, this Justice is really really lovely. 14-year-old. Is this the oldest thing under this line you have released then?
Until the 16-year-old, and then again, sometime in the fall, we're going to have a 25-year-old American light whiskey.
Wow, American, what'd you say?
American light whiskey.
American light whiskey. 25-year-old. Now tell us about that.
the old story that sometimes barrels get forgotten. It does happen, and I was fortunate enough to be able to acquire about 20 barrels of 25-year-old light American whiskey. And what light is, it's almost all corn, and it's distilled to a much higher proof. I believe by law about up to 180 proof.
Wow.
So hence lighter. And I think they started making it both as a blending agent and perhaps back in the 70s when they thought that they can compete with vodka and gin and rum with a lighter version of whiskey. What was neat about it is they put it in used oak, right? So it stands up much better to time in once used oak, because you're getting that deep char at first. So it gets a really elegant flavor after 25 years. I think you'll enjoy trying it.
That's exciting. And this is going to be called, what's the name of this one going to be called?
It is the first in Proof and Wood collection, and the name of it will be 100 Seasons.
100 Seasons.
I did the math, and 25 years times 4 seasons, boom, 100.
I like it. So this has seen 100 seasons in where it comes from. What state?
It comes from the great state of Indiana as well.
It comes from Indiana. And a 25-year-old American light whiskey. I'm not sure. Is it common that one of those has been released at that age, or is this a first?
There's been a little bit floating around. I'm pretty sure you might have seen one or two bottles out there of it, but there's not much of it.
Right. I mean, after that much, it's lost a lot to the Angel share, and this is a very little per. What would be the yield per barrel as far as the percentage lost?
I think we'd lost about 70 to 75%.
Wow, that's really something. So again, the whiskey went into used barrels in the beginning.
Correct.
That had once already seen a bourbon or another type of whiskey.
That is absolutely correct. Yeah.
So like this char that would usually overtake bourbons we might have, like an Old Pappy or whatever it might be, you're not going to be having the char and the wood so much, but it's there. But there's an elegance about it.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah. This is going to. Any idea what this will go for a bottle?
What do you got?
I have to save up for 100 seasons, don't I?
Yeah, those are going to go for about $350.
$350. So this is a very rare whiskey, something very special.
Yep.
Like it. So this is, I can't wait. So this will be something else. All kinds of things to look forward to. Again, that's this fall as well.
It happens when it happens.
It happens when it happens. We're gonna keep track, and we're gonna figure out if these come out. But a lot to look forward to. You have a lot of things that you're working on, my friend, and that's very exciting. And well, here's another way to celebrate something all American. The Senator. Now this one is a rye whiskey at 116 proof. This is. You can see I've already tried all of this. This is really nice. This came out in the fall of last year. Tell us about the Senator.
Well, the Senator is all Indiana rye whiskey. The classic 95% rye, 5% malt. These are all done in small batches. We've done a couple of batches of the Senator between 10 and 20 barrels at a time.
Wow.
And I think at 6 years, between 6 and 10, to me, is really the prime age for that Indiana rye whiskey.
Right.
You get a great balance between the flavor of the wood and the spirit. You can really taste it's rye. It is rye, but the wood just brings in so much great flavor and also exaggerates the spice in it. It just gives you a really big, bold rye whiskey.
This is very nice. This so this again is a minimum of 6, but there is some slightly older whiskey in it.
Between 6 and 7.
6 and 7. Very nice. It's a really good, nicely aged whiskey. Great things, like you said, are beginning to happen with those ryes. some of those elements of the ryes which don't always come off or onto. That starts happening at that 6-7-year-old mark. This is very good. I like this, especially at the proof. It drinks. I mean, though I can tell it is barrel proof, it drinks a little lower, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, it's I think hallmark of a good whiskey. It doesn't need to be aged to be palatable, but it does benefit from the age. You when you try standing up, you generally realize what the proof was. But
yeah. And the name that we'll try that here in a moment. The name, the Senator, also just a tip of the hat to those that represent.
Yeah, it fell into what we've loosely started calling the DC collection. Senator's term is 6 years, and so that fit. And and most senators can be purchased at a reasonable price, and our senator can be purchased at a reasonable price as well.
Well, I like it. What's the this probably costs less than some senators do. What does this cost?
Around 70, 75 a bottle.
Excellent stuff. I like it. That's great. The Senator, very nice 6-year-old, great barrel proof. I see this one was released in the fall. Will there be another round of the Senator coming out?
Yes, there will be another round in this fall, and also it'll be more of a regular item starting next year.
Excellent. Really, really tasty. I like it. Barrel proof rye whiskey. A lot of our friends watching us. Steve Gould says hello to you there, Dave, from Colorado. We had Steve on a few weeks ago, and a lot of great people in the business, and also just those who enjoy great whiskey watching. Now, one of the cool things about Dave and his proof and wood ventures is not only does he venture all over the world of whiskey, as you see, but he also has some incredible rums. The Funk was the first one you released. Is that right?
Correct.
The Funk, unaged, heavy pot still rum. This is I've had a few sips of this. I've had it before, but I love this stuff. What is that heavy pot still Jamaican thing? What were you looking for, and what did you end up finding in this rum whenever you created this?
Well, the Funk, I wasn't really looking for the Funk. The Funk kind of found me.
The Funk found you.
Apt to do. The project actually started with I guess about 3 or 4 years ago. While I was searching for whiskey, I was offered some Jamaican column still rum that, for whatever reason, had been aging in Canada in ex-Canadian whiskey barrels.
Oh, wow. Right? It had been aging in Canada?
Yeah. Don't ask me why. I don't know. But there it was. And the two things, so column still and pot still rum, particularly from Jamaica, column still rum is going to be much lighter, and it's much more efficient to produce. Pot still rum is its own thing. Between the way they ferment it and the way they distill it, they leave a lot of the esters and cogeners in there, and you get intense flavors. A lot of it, I should say, is used as a blending agent. Some of it's even used for blending agents for things like perfumes. It's got that intense of a flavor and aroma to it. So I bought this Jamaican column still rum, and I just had the simple thought, and I'm good with simple thoughts, of taking it down to Kentucky and putting it in used rye barrels, which I had a few of. And I brought it down to Kentucky and pulled some samples after 3-4 weeks, and the flavor was really intense, really nice wood flavor, and the color had gone from like a real pale straw to something kind of like what a Deadwood bourbon looks like in just a few weeks. The downside to that is the wood was overpowering the column still rum.
Wow.
So I thought, well, why don't I do what they do in Jamaica, and I'll buy some pot still rum from Jamaica, and we'll put that in some rye barrels and age that a little bit and blend that together. And the pot still rum arrives in Kentucky after going through a hurricane and getting diverted from Miami to New Orleans and whatnot. Gets there, and the warehouse manager calls me up and say, "Hey, Dave, we've got a problem." I'm like, well, what's the problem? I've never smelled anything as awful as this. And so clearly, not everyone's familiar with what Jamaican pot still rum is all about, and the flavors and the funkiness, but you get a lot of earthy and kind of pungent, almost overripe vegetables and things like that going on in there, along with some great tropical flavors. Any event, this was at 150 proof and 300 gallons of it all at once. So I can imagine what it smelled like to somebody.
What he smelled that, yeah.
Anyway, he sent it up at proof, and it tasted like what I thought it would, and I gradually brought the proof down to 100. And at 100, you got what's in the bottle of the funk, where you get all these Jamaican notes and kind of an introduction into the category. But at 100 proof, it's incredibly approachable.
So this is that rum and it's unaged at 100 proof. Again, if you've ever had a rum that has the funk to it, this doesn't have so much funk that it's like the funkiest thing, but it has quite a bit of funk. That's why you call it the funk. At the same time, that funk meets a lot of layers of creaminess, sweetness, sugar. I mean, there's so many layers to the funk versus other funky rums I've had that it makes it a really fun trip for the palate.
Yeah, and it's very polarizing. People love it or hate it, which is fine. And if you love it, it's great in a real simple, straightforward rum-focused cocktail. Tea punch, even a mojito, daiquiri, of course, things like that. And then we see a lot of people using it as an ingredient in kind of a tiki, sweet fruity drink. It really cuts through that, adds another dimension. So even a half ounce, 3/4 of an ounce will really liven up a cocktail. And
it's very, I love the label too. It's just real fun and looks like it's it's on like a dance floor that's gonna make you happy. It's happy stuff. 100 proof, great in cocktails. I wanted you to say once again, you said, what do they put with the perfumes? What they use some rums to blend in with perfumes for the nose? Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Wow. And that would be this kind or the other? This is this kind.
I don't know specifically this kind, but there's other Jamaican rums that are, dare I say, even funkier than that.
Right. With those elements, I bet would balance out perfumes, colognes, that kind of thing. Only a handful of distilleries in Jamaica. Do you tell which distillery you get this one from?
Not all the time, but people can figure it out if they really want to.
Okay. All right. So
but it's really good. Then they sometimes don't like it, so we
all right.
Respect their wishes.
Yeah. So great stuff. I think a great introduction to funky rum. This one in the same states that you're currently in?
Correct.
And this one goes for about how much, Dave?
About 25.
Very nice. I love this. I can't wait to try a cocktail with it. It's so tasty on its own, and I think that as whiskey lovers try new things, getting something that doesn't hit the palate just that same way that a mellow aged rum would. It's not, if people are imagining what that funk is like, it's not sharp. It's nothing that stings like some unaged things. This is just a really unique note that hits you, and then it kind of has this flavor, like a roller coaster of flavors to it. I'm impressed. This is so good.
Again, and I sometimes hate taking credit for it because it's distilled so well. And I don't know if you can see in the back here, I've got this barrel head, we won this year the Best of Class Rum, the American Craft Spirits Association Awards.
Congratulations on that. It's really, really nicely done. The fruit notes that it finishes with, it starts funky, but the fruit that it finishes, soft, it's melon, it's tropical, it's creamy. It's very, very well done. The funk is something that I think can be enjoyed by so many people. Now, another rum that this Exodus is your newest rum, right?
We actually literally bottled it last week.
So I'm probably, well, we're among the first maybe to broadcast a tasting of this Exodus. Is that right?
Absolutely.
All right.
It got done when it got done.
Here's the Exodus.
Here's a full-size bottle.
Very nice. The Exodus rum. What makes this unique from the funk?
Well, if you see the back, we're powered by the funk.
You're powered by. Okay, I like it.
So
funk.
What's in here is all rum distilled in Jamaica, a blend of column and pot still that we talked about. The column still was all aged for 3 years in Canada and then 2 years in Kentucky. And I brought it down to similar to what you age bourbon. A lot of the Jamaican rums are aged at like 150, 140 proof, which are going to give you different flavor notes out of it. Not to mention the climate's different between Kentucky and Jamaica, surprisingly enough. Right. So you're going to get different notes in the aging, different timelines of what flavors you're going to find. And then about 30% of Exodus is pot still rum. So about a third of that is what you find in the funk, and the other two are some lower ester pot still rums that were aged in Jamaica for 2 and 3 years respectively, and then another 2 years in Kentucky. So you get all these great notes of Jamaican rum, but blended into the lighter rum makes it much more approachable, and a lot of flavors coming out from the barrels, a lot more sweetness. You'll pick up a lot of butterscotch notes and vanilla notes in there.
And are these used bourbon barrels you're using then?
These are actually used rye barrels.
Rye barrels. Okay. You picked the rye barrel versus the bourbon. What was the
honest answer is I bottle a lot more rye than I do bourbon. Well, the idea also was to see if we would get a little bit drier of the characteristics.
Okay.
You're really getting a lot of the notes that you associate with bourbon from there.
Of course, yeah.
You might pick up a little bit more spice, but yeah, it's very similar. They're the same barrels.
It's really nice. Very, very subtle, very, very delicate. Again, 30%. Did you say 30% of it is the funk, or is the
pot still?
Pot still.
70% is column still.
70% column still. Some of the funk, but also you said some lower ester Jamaican. So again, lower ester would mean a little bit less on the funk note.
Yeah, we could oversimplify it with that
to a degree. Right. So really, really nice, creamy. Again, more some of that tropical flavor, but just really nice for. I mean, I'm sure it goes great in a cocktail, but just the sipping element of this, just being so sippable and has so many layers to it. This is beautiful.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. And the fun thing about Exodus, it's the first the first spirit that I've kind of conceived from start to finish and used different aging techniques and played with the proof that we were aging it at, and to kind of get where we wanted to go. So I'm looking forward to fine tuning it as we go forward with it.
Nicely done. No, it's very nice. And so this just bottled last week. Is it out right now?
There is some on its way to Chicago as we speak. Some heading to New York shortly, and it'll make its way around the country.
And price point for a bottle of this?
Around 30.
Around 30. Very nice. Very nicely aged. Very nicely done, Dave. When you were experimenting with balance between the pot and the column still. What was that process like as you were trying to get that right?
It is more of conceptually, I knew what I wanted to do, but the process was trying it at different age and when was it ready? Right. And once it was ready, we blended it, and then we actually put it back in barrels for about 3 months to kind of marry it all together.
To get those flavors married together. Very nice. Distilled in Jamaica and blended in Kentucky. It's had a whole cycle. It's seen a lot of places to get into the glass. And
don't forget Canada.
Oh, and Canada too. It was in Canada as well, right? Aged a little bit in Canada.
Yep.
Wow. Now, how long was it in Canada?
3 years.
3 years in Canada, and those barrels were Canadian barrels.
Yeah.
Canadian barrels. Wow. Incredible. So it's been all over. The name Exodus. How'd you come up with the name?
Just kind of, a journey and going from one place to another.
The journey, yeah, of course, yeah. The Exodus. Beautiful stuff, Dave. Really, really nicely done. We've tried everything from the Deadwood tonight, the Rye and Bourbon, the Senator, the Tumbling Dice, the Funk, Exodus, and we have a whole lot of whiskeys to look forward to in the fall, don't we? Or thereabouts.
Yeah, there'll be a couple.
You also, I noticed that a bottle of hot sauce made it into my package as well. You sent me. You want to tell the story, Dave?
It was just a nod to I think the first time we met.
Somehow, I don't know what happened. I think a little bit of hot sauce got into something that that was poured for me at the New York Beer, Bourbon, and Barbecue Festival, and it was pretty hot, from what I recall.
Well, let me clarify that, because there seem to be two versions of this story.
There probably are several.
It was many years ago when I had my other whiskey brands at the Beer, Bourbon, and Barbecue Festival.
Right.
And great event. They do it all over. It was always well run. There would be, as the name suggests, beer, bourbon, and barbecue. And then there'd be things like hot sauce vendors and things like that. And I'd met you earlier in the day, and you tried all the whiskey, and it was all great. And you're hanging out for a while, and then you went and did your thing. And then I had a friend and my brother who became friends with the hot sauce guy. And he gave us some ghost pepper hot sauce. and as things go, somewhere along the evening, we decided to do whiskey, we can call them shots or samples, for ourselves with the ghost pepper hot sauce and rye whiskey. And this hot sauce was really hot. So hot that we had blended into the bottle of hot sauce a mixture of rye and the hot sauce. And then we took that mixture and added it to the shots of rye before doing them. And we were doing that. We were having a great time. And you come back to the booth and you see we're having a great time doing these shots. And you don't ask questions because we're on friendly terms, and what's mine is yours at this point. And you just come over and pour yourself a shot straight out of the bottle of ghost pepper hot sauce, and you drink it. I thought
it was just whiskey.
We're all standing there going, no! and you doubled over in pain. I recall you drinking 2 full pitchers of water.
Yeah.
Hanging out for a while till you were able to get back up again. Now, this is what happened in what I remember.
That's right.
You for a while thought we did play a prank.
It felt like a prank. That's right. It did. Yeah.
But you're still here.
After a few glasses of whiskey, it's good to be reminded what actually happened. Hopefully that's. Now, actually, I think I grabbed a pitcher of water, and the security officers nearby were saying, no, you're not supposed to be drinking from pitchers of water. But I'm like, you don't understand what just happened to me.
I think then they tased you too.
I hope not. I don't think that part. They might have though. Now this is.
A couple of weeks. I don't know if you know this. I was launching Redemption in Indiana.
Yep.
And the distributor group, great bunch of guys. One of them during the Q&A period raises his hand and goes, "Hey, you should really send a bottle of this to this guy Tom Fischer. I think he'd appreciate it." I don't know.
Right. Right at the beginning of Redemption. Did you know how hot this is? Have you tried this one? Is it
I think that's a lot milder.
A lot milder? I think I read it's 10,000 to 50,000 Scoville. I'm just going to try a bite of it, okay?
A little bit.
I'm just going to try a bite of this. I think probably the best way to do it is kind of like on the back of the wrist or something like that, like we do the bitters. Okay, I'm just going to try a little bite. And I'll tell you, that's very nice. That actually has some heat to it. Not quite as much as it did that day, but that is very nice, Dave. Thank you very much.
With the funk.
Yeah, it's a good pairing. I think we could probably do a cocktail with it. All right. I think there's a whole show now where they do like the hot sauce interview called The Hot Ones. Have you seen this?
I have not.
They interview a celebrity over hot sauce, and it keeps on getting hotter and hotter. So, Dave, it's always a pleasure. Thanks for having fun. A lot of great things we tried. Check out where can they find you? Where can they find what you do? Where's the best place to follow you?
I've been accused of running a speakeasy kind of company because we had very little web presence. There is a Proof and Wood website. It's kind of under construction, but it's a good way to contact.
Cool. Right on. So look for Dave, look for his products, the Deadwood, everything from the Deadwood, the Rye and Bourbon to the Tumbling Dice. Those were so nice. These tumbling dice, the funk we just tried, the Senator. We will have this video, or actually this audio, up on our podcast channel. Look for our podcast channel where you listen to podcasts. This will remain up permanently. So if for some reason you started it late, it'll be right there also on bourbonblog.com live. If anybody has any whiskey questions or wants to talk about doing a virtual tasting, drop me a line at tom@bourbonblog.com. Dave, thanks so much, man. It's so good to see you. Hopefully we'll see you in the near future for a whiskey in real life. Until then, cheers, my friend.
Cheers.
Cheers, Dave. Thanks so much, man. Thanks to all who are watching. And we will be back with you on Saturday night when we do our cigar Saturday at 8 p.m. Eastern. All right, buddy.